Today we're going to look at finding the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons inside of an atom. First thing that we want to do is just go back and kind of review a little bit about atomic structure. Your protons and your neutrons are inside of the nucleus of the atom. That's in the center of the atom. And then on the outside, in those orbitals, we have electrons. The electrons are very, very, very tiny in comparison to the protons and the neutrons, which are essentially the same size. That's going to come into play here in a little bit. So if we want to know how many protons are in an atom, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a periodic table. And when we look at a periodic table, we're going to look at the number at the top up here, which is called the atomic number. The atomic number is actually how the elements are all arranged on the periodic table. They go in order. And that number actually tells you the number of protons in the atom. So your protons is your atomic number. Your protons have a positive charge. Your electrons have a negative charge. In order to have an overall neutral atom, your positive charges and your negative charges have to cancel one another out. So for right now, until we get into something called an ion later, your atomic number is the same thing for your protons and your electrons. So your electrons is your atomic number as well. For your neutrons, their only real goal is to have that positive charge in the nucleus of the atom. They help to kind of buffer out that positive charge so that way the nucleus can all kind of stick together in the center, and then you have the electrons on the outside. So with your neutrons, we're going to have to come back to this part here where we said that your protons and your neutrons are approximately the same in size, and your electrons are very, very, very tiny. That means that the mass of the atom is equal to your protons plus your neutrons. So if we only want the neutrons, we're going to take the mass and we have to subtract off the number of protons. So when we look at a periodic table, we have all these masses at the bottom. These masses at the bottom are all decimal type answers. The reason why they're decimal type answers is they're averages of all the known isotopes of the different elements. So because they're an average, what we're going to have to do is we need to round it to a whole number, because your protons plus your neutrons is your mass. You can only have a certain number of protons and neutrons. They have to be whole numbers. You can't have like 0.25 of a proton. So in order to take your mass, round it to the nearest whole number. So silicon is going to become 28, phosphorus is 31, sulfur is 32, chlorine's 35, and so on and so on. So we're going to take the mass and round it. We're going to subtract off the number of protons, or the mass minus the atomic number. So just to do a couple of examples, if you wanted to know how many protons, neutrons, and electrons are in phosphorus, phosphorus is number 15 on the periodic table. It's right here. Oops, sorry, it's right there. We need to take that mass and round it to a whole number of 31. So for the number of protons, it's the atomic number, which is 15. Electrons is the same amount, 15, because your positive and your negative has to cancel out. For your neutrons, we're going to take our mass number, which is 31, minus 15, and that's going to give us 16 neutrons total. Now if we want to do another element, if we look at, I don't know, something like calcium. For calcium, it's number 20, its mass rounds to 40. So calcium is number 20, its mass number is going to round to 40. So the number of protons there is 20, because it's number 20 on the periodic table. The electrons have to be the same, so that's 20. And then your neutrons, we're going to take our mass, which is 40, minus our atomic number, which is 20, and that's going to give us 20. So in order to find the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons inside of the atom, we have to look at the periodic table. The number at the top, your atomic number, is always going to tell you your number of protons. For right now, your protons equals your number of electrons. For your neutrons, you have to take your mass and round it to a whole number. So germanium here, you're going to round to 73 minus 32, and that'll give you your number of neutrons.